Hi everybody and welcome. Hello Patch. Welcome to today's story time. So with all current events that's happening at the moment, I thought it would be a really lovely opportunity for us to take some time every day to sit down together and to read some story. Now, luckily, I have got the Universal series. So what I shall be doing is every day coming and sitting down and we'll read another chapter of the Universal series together. So grab your comfy blanket, get a cup of tea or coffee, get all settled in, hand the phone over to one of the kids, whatever you want to do, and we shall begin today's story time. Today's book is the first book in the Universal series, which is a Diary of Dreams. So, introduction. It was 3 a.m. in the morning and Alice still couldn't handle the eeriness of night time. Now her protector was gone, everything seemed stiller, spookily stiller. Alice shivered and got goosebumps as the thought crossed her mind. She glanced across at her son, Hugh, fast asleep in the land of dreams. He looked so peaceful and happy. It had been 6 months since Hugh's dad had died. 6 months! God, where has that time gone? Ali thought. Yet the darkness in her heart still loomed and the pain still shot through her body with every heartbeat. Ali went back to looking through the internet just to pass the time until daybreak. There was nothing interesting. When is the pain going to go? When will I stop feeling his absence and start feeling the presence in life? I know his love hasn't gone, it's only transformed, Ali muttered to the night sky. It was a full moon and there was a pool of moonlight beside her bed. Ali gazed into the pool of light as a thought floated through her head. Not quite a thought, more a promise she had made. To go on a road trip around America, yet it never seemed to be the right time. She had planned to do it with a family when Hugh's dad was alive. I guess we're still a family, it's just now we have a guardian angel instead of a husband or a dad. No sooner had the thought entered her head, she dismissed it. Ali rolled over and felt the warmth of the morning sun stroke her face. As she lay there basking in the light, she stretched out her left arm and felt an empty space next to her. A small groan left her lips. No miracles last night, he's still not here. Then she heard the front door close, which caused her to screw up into the fetal position. Her mum had just arrived. She had heard the kettle being switched on and Ali's mum's questions begin. Where's your mum, Hugh? Upstairs, Hugh replied cheerily. What is she still doing in bed at this time? Ali knew it wouldn't be long before her mum would be upstairs pulling the duvet off her. Yet that still wasn't enough of an incentive to get out of bed. Then she heard her mum's feet stomp up the stairs. Ali, why aren't you up? She called. Then whoosh, the duvet was gone, with her warm blanket replaced with cold air. Come on, Ali, get up, exclaimed her mum. Time to stop wasting the day. And with that comment, she was off down the stairs again. Her mum had taken it upon herself to be Ali's personal alarm clock. Not at Ali's recommendation, though. Ali rolled herself out of bed and put on her dressing gown and made her way to the bathroom. She turned on the tap to run some hot water. She glanced into the mirror and saw the dark rings around her eyes and another wrinkle to add to the collection. I look like the Walking Dead, she said to herself and splashed her face trying to wash away her sadness. When she moved the towel away from her face, she looked in the mirror. Another wish not granted. The heavy weight of despair sat in her stomach. All I have to do is make it through today, she thought as she ran her hand down the banister, as she walked down the staircase. As she entered the kitchen, she saw Hugh washing up his breakfast pots. He turned to Ali. Morning, Mum. How did you sleep? He said merrily. Okay, thanks, Ali replied, jealous of his upbeat happiness. Her mum then entered the kitchen like a whirlwind. So what are you doing today, Ali? Ali just shrugged her shoulders as she took a sip of tea. Hugh went upstairs to clean his teeth. Ali's mum took the opportunity to give her daughter another pep talk. What kind of an example are you setting your son? She began. You need to snap out of it for Hugh's sake, for all our sakes. You can't carry on like this. Life goes on. Ali had grown accustomed to her mum's morning pep talks on how she was an inadequate mother. Ali just kept drinking her tea. Eventually, Hugh came back down the stairs. Ali's mum gave one last disapproving look at her daughter. Come on, Hugh, let's get you off to school before we end up being late, Ali's mum instructed. Hugh grabbed his rucksack and coat and went over to his mum and gave her a hug. See you later, Mum. Keep searching for your happiness. It'll come back soon. Ali bent down and kissed Hugh on the cheek. She admired his optimism. Then the front door closed and silence descended. Part of her enjoyed the quiet. At least she didn't have to put on a brave face and say everything is okay. She stood in the kitchen, contemplating what she should do today. Ali settled on having a shower. That would be her job list for today, and then she would hide from life. Trying to forget all that had gone on in the past 6 months, forgetting he is no longer here, continuing to watch the front door, waiting for him to come walking in, scooping her up and having a long, loving kiss as he apologised for being late. As the picture of Hugh's dad came into her head, she burst into sobs and lowered herself to the kitchen floor, bringing her knees up to her chest. The grieving is never-ending. Sadness is now her shadow. There, even when she can't see it. Her tear ducts are permanently in use and the pain in her chest hits as she feels each of her heart cells die, as she no longer has the one she loves next to her. Ali mopped up her tears. Come on, Ali, you can do this, she said sternly to herself. If Hugh can do it, so can I. How did he do it? She thought. She concluded that he seems happy and has just embraced the change in life. His dad is no longer here. Each night he says to Ali, I know I can't see Dad anymore, but I know each day is filled with his love. Ali began to sob again at the thought of no longer having his arms wrapped around her, making her feel like that was the safest place in the world where any dream could come true. Ali had accomplished her task for the day, even though it did take her until 3 p.m. to achieve it, just in time for when Hugh got home from school. Hey, Monkey, Ali's nickname for Hugh. How was your day? It was okay, nothing exciting, he said, while throwing his school bag on the chair and headed up to his bedroom. Ali watched as he walked by her. She felt so numb. Monkey, what do you want for dinner? Don't mind, Hugh shouted from the stairs, then he was gone. As Hugh entered his room, he slumped on his bed. It's not that he doesn't want to spend time with his mum. It's just he doesn't want to feel sad or see his mum so sad. He dreams every night that his mum finds her happiness again, and he knows his happiness annoys his mum. It's not that he doesn't miss his dad, because he does. He realises there will be so many moments in the future when everyone has got their dads with them and he won't have his there. But it's just that he doesn't want his life to disappear and spend all his time regretting all the things he would have liked to have done. He stared up at his ceiling, thinking about what he wants to do when he grows up, the places he wants to see. He smiled as his imagination was ignited with the endless possibilities. Then he thought back to when his dad was alive. His mum made vision boards every year, full of pictures of places she wanted to go, people she wanted to meet, and dreams she wanted to achieve. When Dad died, she had taken them all down and burnt them in one of her desperate moments, crying out, "What's the point in dreaming anymore?" Hugh rolled onto his side at the memory of her bad days. He took out a pad and pencil to doodle as his mind wandered over the happenings of the past 6 months. As the memories started to come flooding back, he stopped them and thought, no, I'm not going down the spiral. My mum's wrong. It is right to dream. Dreams do come true. She has just forgotten the magic. He jumped from his bed and began rummaging through his drawers. Where are they? He said to himself in desperation. He headed under his bed. Surely she didn't get rid of them, he said aloud. He headed over to the bottom of his wardrobe, and when he opened the door, he saw the stack of magazines. As he pulled the large pile out, they crashed to the floor and heard his mum shout, "Is everything all right?" "Yes, Mum," he replied promptly, not wanting his mum to come upstairs and see what he was creating. Hugh began flicking through the pages, tearing out ones that had something he liked on them, and then he threw the used magazines by his door when he felt he had got everything he wanted out of them. The pile of pictures began to grow as he looked at his A4 notepad on his bed. This dream is way too big for that, he thought. His eyes carried on up the wall by his bed. Perfect, he whispered. He went over to his desk and pulled out the sellotape and began to stick the pictures on the wall. Places he wanted to go, people he wanted to meet, and dreams he wanted to achieve. He couldn't help but bounce with excitement on his bed at the thought of all this coming true. I'll help Mum to remember that love isn't lost, it's just transformed. Ali was downstairs on the sofa, staring out the window, watching people pass by, living life, with no clue of how precious their life is, or making the most of the time they have with the ones they love, instead of wasting it on things that make them feel unhappy. Just as she saw a woman holding her little boy's hand crossing the road, she realised how quiet Hugh was and shuffled off the sofa. Living seemed such an effort to her as she made her way to his room. Is everything okay, little man? She said as she slowly opened his door, not knowing what to expect. As the gap in the door widened, she saw Hugh on his bed with a picture in one hand and the sellotape in the other, with the pictures sprawled out in front of him, all over his bed. What are you up to? She inquired. I'm making a vision wall, Hugh replied. A vision wall? She asked, shocked. Yes, Mum. Look, there are the places I'm going to go to. Over here are the people I'm going to meet, and over here are all the dreams I'm going to achieve. Ali's eyes scanned the wall. There were definitely a lot of pictures. All in 1 year? She asked. No, silly, over the next couple of years. Instead of a vision board, Mum, like you used to do for the year, my vision wall is going to be ongoing. I'll keep adding pictures to it, and when I have completed one thing, I'll take it down, Hugh instructed. Oh, right, Ali said, still lost in the pictures. They are incredible dreams, she whispered. As her eyes flowed across the wall, she couldn't help her curiosity, a stir inside her wonder what it would be like to have some of the dreams in her own life. Ali took in a big breath and stepped back, afraid to get too close to dreaming. I'd best leave you to it, and left his room. Hugh was too engrossed in what he was doing to notice his mum leave. Ali made her way back downstairs and started to cook dinner and make Hugh's packed lunch for the next day. She felt different as she cooked. She couldn't quite put her finger on it exactly, but just felt different. The next day was the same routine as her mum arrived like a whirlwind, whipped up Hugh and took him off to school. When she heard the door close and knew the tornado called her mum was well and truly gone, she got dressed and headed downstairs to make some breakfast. As she sat eating her boiled egg, her eyes surveyed the room. When did the house get so dirty? Ali thought. Ali felt the sudden urge to straighten out her life. Today things are going to change, she said to the boiled egg as she ate the last bite. She headed to the sink to start the washing up and then cleaned the kitchen to within an inch of its life. She moved to the living room where she switched on the TV and put on the music channel. As she dusted, her hips began to sway to the music. It had been a long time since Ali had danced, but the music was infectious as she sidestepped with the Hoover. She heard the beep of the washing machine finish, switched off the Hoover and went to hang out the washing and put the next load on. As she was in the garden, she looked around and noticed that it also needed some attention, but it would have to wait for another day. Ali made her way upstairs to Hugh's room to change his bed sheets. Ali scooped up the dirty bed sheets from the floor, ready to take them downstairs. She looked up at Hugh's vision wall and thought of his optimism. I hope he doesn't become too disappointed when these things don't come true, Ali thought as she walked out and closed the door behind her. Hugh walked through the door and stopped, staring at his mum, who was in the living room ironing with a movie on the TV. Hi Hugh, how was your day? Ali asked. Good, thanks. How was yours? He said, looking around at the clean house. Good, she remarked, still ironing. Hugh put his school bag on the chair and ran upstairs to get changed. Took off his school clothes and put on his jeans and t-shirt, he looked up at his vision wall. "It's working," he said convincingly. As he was scanning the places he wanted to visit, his eyes fell on a picture of a country fair and rodeo in America. He had part picked it for himself and part for his mum, as she always used to talk about America and how they were going to go on a big trip there as a family and have a real adventure. As he thought, the thought gathered momentum in his mind. A wave of excitement ran from his head all the way down to his feet, and he began dancing on the spot as if he was on hot coals. He sprinted out of his room, down the stairs, missing one of the steps and stumbling, but quickly regaining his balance and carried on running at top speed as he made his way into the living room. Hugh slid into the living room, surprising Ali. "Where's the fire?" she asked, staring at Hugh. Hugh positioned himself in front of her and stood on the chair. "I have just had the most brilliant idea," he exclaimed as he stretched his arms as wide as he could. Ali looked at him cautiously. "You see, Mum, I was just looking at my vision wall, and you know how you used to always say that we're going on a big trip to America? Well, let's go!" He shouted joyfully. Ali began to iron again. "It's not the right time, Hugh." "Mum, you're wrong," he said, jumping off the chair. "It's the perfect time. Let's go on the trip, you and me. We'll book the plane tickets, pack our bags, and go on an adventure." He couldn't help but bounce up and down with excitement for all the opportunities that could happen on their adventure. Ali grabbed another piece of clothing. "Hugh, it's not the right time," Ali repeated. "Come on, Mum, it's what we need," Hugh pleaded. "I said no, Hugh. Now drop it," she snapped. Hugh looked up at his mum. Ali saw the sparkle in his eyes disappear as it was replaced with tears. Hugh turned and ran up to his room. Ali stood motionless. "My mum was right. I am a terrible mother," she told herself as she felt the self-loathing start to move around her body like poison in her blood. The feeling that was she had avoided all day then arrived, the familiar feeling of absence of life. Love and, most of all, hope began to descend. So I hope you've enjoyed chapter 1, and I will see you tomorrow for story time, and it will be chapter 2, which is Passports at the Ready.